Alright, so in this video we are going to be restoring a set of German chisels that I got on eBay. We are going to seal the sticker onto the handles, remove the rust, flatten the backs, get them sharpened up, and try them out. I have never actually restored chisels like this, so we'll see what happens. Stick with me. All right, so the first thing that I want to do before I start restoring any part of the blade here is seal in the logo on the handles, because it's like a sticker, and I don't want that to go away because that decreases the value. Plus, I just think it's awesome that chisels this old still have, the logos on there. So, I reached out to the Chisel group on Facebook, and they recommended just clear shellac for sealing in logos. So that's what I'm going to do. I have some clamps because what I'm thinking is when it's done, I'm just going to clamp the end of the chisel like that and then stand it up. So it'll dry that way is what I'm thinking. First thing I want to do is tape off the ferrules because I don't want shellac getting on those. And I don't want to have to be super careful with the brush just because I don't like to. So let me tape these off. I guess I should have added. So I didn't want to sand these down or anything. I wanted to preserve that natural, all this stuff in here. I wanted to preserve that. I wanted them to look as original as possible. Here we go. This is what they look like when they're in the clamps while they're drying. Okay, so here we go. A couple days later, I think I did 4 or 5 coats on these because I had a couple other sets of chisels that have logos or stickers on them, and I wanted to go ahead and seal those while I was at it. So that's why it took a little bit longer. But I am really happy with how these turned out. I feel like it's definitely going to be sealed in there, and I'll be able to handle these without having to worry about ruining that. So the next step is I'm going to go ahead and start stripping some of this rust off. As you can see, they're pretty rusty. It doesn't look like it's pitted at all on any of them. This one's got it pretty good. So what I use for that, you can pick these up pretty much at any big box store, your local Ace Hardware, whatever. I'm going to use this one initially. If this ends up being too rough, because I've never actually tried this one, and I've never tried this one. I've always just jumped to the finishing pad, and it takes a while. So I'm going to try actually going through the progressions on these and see how it goes. So I guess the handles weren't dry. It definitely feels like they are and looks like they are, but look at that. The sheen's basically gone, which I actually feel like I'm okay with. Here we go. If you guys don't have one of these, they're awesome. It's just a little, you push the pump down and it puts whatever you want onto the rag. So you can use it for oil, you can use it for mineral spirits. I have one for mineral spirits. I plan on getting one for oil because that would just be super handy. So if I find them, I'll put a link in the description for one of these. Okay, so next steps is getting these sharpened, ready to go. I also wanted to show you guys, I did put some finish on the box just because I wanted that to be a little bit more sealed in. So that's done also. So flattening the backs of chisels. There's no way around it. It sucks. It takes time. It takes quite a bit of time, depending on how out of whack the chisels are. If you're going with vintage chisels, they're usually pretty out of whack. But that's just how it goes. You just kind of got to keep at it until you get it flat enough. If you're going to use sandpaper, that's where you have a very high chance of rolling your corners over. If you're using diamond plates and they're flat, there's no chance that you're going to do that unless you're putting like all of your pressure here and lifting up and doing crazy things. If you're using water stones, ceramic stones, natural stones, there's a chance you're going to roll those corners over also because they might not be flat. Or they might wear into a certain way where it is going to start taking it out of flat and hitting your corners. So that's something to just keep in mind. The other thing to mention when you are flattening these, I like to start at 1,000 grit because my goal is to get the micro bevel and the primary at 1,000 grit. So whatever you want your final grit to be, the back needs to match that. If you're going to sharpen to 20K, your back needs to be 20K. I did a whole separate video that talks about sharpening with the different media and the different grits and yada yada. So I'm not going to get into that now, but you really don't need to sharpen past 1,000. I go to 1,000, I hit my strop, and I call it a day. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start here. I'm going to use light pressure. I'm going to try to keep even pressure across the whole thing. If you do this and you just push down, like just the fingers here, you might notice some differences. Depending on how the chisel is, especially when you get to like the smaller ones, you really want to try to keep even pressure across it, not just finger points down, because it'll flatten it differently. And while I'm going through this, you might see that. You might see me make a mistake and I'm putting too much pressure somewhere, and I'll show you what that looks like. The next thing you want to make sure is if you have it on a tray like I do to try to keep things clean, you don't want the handle touching anywhere. You want to make sure you have enough clearance that it's not going to lift this up, because if it's lifting it up, you're going to give yourself a back bevel, and that's just going to cause issues. All right, let's do it. I do have one more thing. I just remembered. So, you can flatten the whole back if you want to. You can. You don't have to, do just a little bit. If you want to flatten the whole thing, go for it, buddy. Just know that you're going to be here for a while. So what I like to do is just a little bit. It varies per chisel. I don't care if it has a perfect line. I don't care if it's perfectly mirrored. None of that stuff bothers me because it's a user set and they're not for looking at, they're for using. But really, you only need basically how much of it you're going to use. If it's a paring chisel, then you're probably going to want to go a little bit farther up. If it's just a bench chisel, you're going to do some chopping, then you don't really need to go that high up. If the back of this is really good and really flat, then I'm probably going to do the whole thing, so then I don't have to do it later. That's what you got to think about too, is if you only do a little bit, eventually if you keep sharpening and sharpening and sharpening and you have these for your lifetime, you're going to need to flatten the back again. And then you sharpen, 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 you'll need to flatten the back again. And that's how it works, but these last a long time, so I don't want you stressing on that. Now, if you're messing up sharpening and you're constantly going to the grinder, then yeah, you're going to see the life of these go down pretty quick. But these last for a long time, so don't stress on that. That's just kind of a side note. All right, so here we go. But if I can get the sides and this front part flat, I don't care about a hollow. That doesn't matter to me because the sides are there for reference and the front is there for reference. So I'm going to keep going on the 1,000 grit. So this one, it's just a little bit of the side right here and a little bit of the side right there, but it's all the way around the top and the majority of the back. That's good enough for me. If you want to keep chasing it, you can. But I mainly care about that whole front right there and then just enough of the back. So I'm cool with this. If you wanted to keep going, you can, but that's good enough for me. Let's go to the next one. I do want to mention too, if you noticed with this one, the very first one I did, I dropped grits and then I went back up to the grit, and you saw that that didn't quite work out for me. So the other thing I want you to think about while you're going through these grits, the more stones you change, you're changing your hand pressure. So I found that if I can get all of this done on one stone, that's better. And I should have done it for this one. I was trying to speed it up because it had that hollow, which it did, but I think I would have been able to just do it on one stone and that I would have been good. So the more stones you change, you're going to notice that too, especially if you're going from like ceramic stones, the different grits. If it's not perfectly flat, you're going to notice a difference. If you use too much pressure on one stone, you're going to notice a difference. So best thing that I've been able to do is stick with one stone. If you're sharpening to 12K, then you're going to have to go through the progressions. But if you're stopping at 1,000 or 3,000, just flatten your back there. Just makes it easier. Less chance for error. This hollow is so deep I can feel it. This one I will go to the 300. I don't want to because, like I said, it's increasing the chance for error, but I can feel that hollow. That's good enough. Again, I don't care about that hollow. That's good for me. This one looks like it was flattened before, but it looks like they rounded. Oh yeah, I can definitely feel where that's rounded. Let's see how bad it is. So this, I'm not going to chase. It's good enough for me. I will just remember in using it that these corners are rounded over, but I'm not going to keep chasing this because I'll catch up to it eventually. Ooh, my thumb caught on the corner here. Did you see that? You know what? I might have dug that corner in when I jumped. That's all right because the micro bevel will fix that. So this one's good enough for me. Last one. Now with the little ones, it's really tough to go this way because it'll roll. So I usually increase the angle on this and go this way. I don't think I'm going to chase this either, because that like really comes off this way. So this I'm going to say is good enough for me. So there you go. That is flattening the backs of chisels. I think the most important thing is don't use too much pressure. A lot of people like to think that if you like really push down and really, grind the stone, no, that's gonna mess things up. So just use light pressure and a lot of repetitions. If you are gonna use really heavy pressure, go slow and try to make it as even as possible. But light pressure, a lot of repetitions, and just keep at it. It's up to you how flat you want the back to be. I've been woodworking since 2018, and I don't chase a lot of things. Which was the one like this one? I'm not chasing those corners because eventually I'm going to catch up to it when I do my micro bevels and stuff like that. So I'm not stressing on those at all. It's up to you if you want to chase it now. I have noticed a little bit of a difference, but I think the most important part for me, especially like we're just talking bench chisels. If we're talking paring chisels, that's a different story. You want as much of that to be perfectly flat as possible because you're pairing with it. But these are going to be chopping, clearing waste, that kind of stuff. So I'm not stressing on it. Yeah, again, it's up to you how flat you want to get them. So let's go ahead and work on the primaries. When you are, or sorry, the micro bevels. I do have a video of how to do this by hand. If you're doing micro bevels, if you're doing primary bevels, you definitely want to jig. So let me check the angle of these. I just got this for Christmas, so I'm excited to try it out. So I'd say these are at 20. So 20 is more for pairing. I definitely don't want them at 20, but let's put a micro bevel on there and see how sharp they get. When you're doing this, just a reminder, you're going to set it down, find your primary. Let's see if I can bring this up closer. Set it down, find your primary, slightly up. So set it down, find your primary, slightly up. With these ones, you definitely want to use 2. When you get to the smaller ones, you'll probably only be able to use 1. To keep checking to make sure you're square, after you do this for a little bit, check the burr. If you feel that the burr is heavy on one side and light on the other, then you're going to want to put pressure on the other side. But definitely keep checking to make sure you're square until you get the muscle memory for this. So there's my micro bevel. I have a burr going all the way across. I'm going to take that off on the strop. So we'll set that aside for now and go to the next one. Getting way out of square on this one, and I'm not sure why. Well, I guess I should have explained. This is how I fix square. So if I don't want to throw it in a jig, then what I do is I take it, and the side that needs to be ground down more, I put my finger there. I find my primary. I go slightly up, and I drag back. Find primary, slightly up, drag back. And this one was really out of whack. This one, honestly, from here, I would probably throw it in a jig. Throw it in, whatever kind of sharpening jig you have. Or reset that primary. But it's almost there. Let me try it at the primary. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this around. This steel's been sharpening pretty quickly, so I'm going to see how long it's going to take me. I'm just going to put it to the primary and drag back. Yeah, I'm going to throw this one in the jig. When you're using this jig, you want to try to make sure that these openings are even across. I do have the side clamping one, but I don't feel like swapping it out right now. What I should have done too, just a note, before I started the micro bevel, I should have checked to make sure that this was square. Because I did that micro bevel, that's why you see this serious indent on that side. So I made it worse because I didn't check that. So that's why I'm having to spend so much time correcting it right now, but we're getting there. It happens. All right, what I'm going to do now, because it is close, I'm going to put a micro bevel on this. You're going to see the bevel go all crazy. It's not going to be completely straight across because it's not straight right now. But it'll catch up to itself. A lot of people like, oh, it's got to be, a perfectly straight across bevel. Well, okay, it looks nicer, but as long as the end's square, who cares what that bevel looks like? All right, let's do this. Man, this thing is way out of whack still. Way out of whack still. Phone battery died. All right, so I think I figured out why I can't get this thing to be square. So if you look at the sides, they're not even. So this side is steeper and this side's more elongated. This side is thinner, that side is thicker. So I'm not sure what to do about this one because I've never encountered this before, but I'll check on the chisel group. Because as you can see, it's still not getting square. See that? So I'm starting to think it's not getting square because this isn't. I mean, you can drastically tell it down here. See how thin this side is compared to that side? Or how steep that is compared to that side? Even thickness. So there's that side. There's that side. So that's the only thing I can think that's contributing, because I tried the side clamping, I tried the top clamping, and it's not getting square. So I'm going to leave this one alone. If I find out information about it, I'll put it in the description, or I'll do a short on it or something. But this one's, I'm done with that. It's starting to frustrate me. Let me check this one. All right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to write myself a note, because this one is at 25. The other ones are at 20, and I want to remember that. So what I do is I write it in here, and then when I go to put them in the box, I put a little note up here, but this is just so I remember now. This one keeps wanting to go out of square also, even in the jig. I caught it just in time before it got too bad. I'm going to say that's good enough for me. But I'm not sure, because you can see this side is shallower, that side is steeper. You can see where this is at a square back here. Can you see that line? See the top of that bevel, how that's all out of square? So I'm not sure what's going on with these, but I got it to a usable condition. So I'm going to roll with it. And like I said, I'll find out if the chisel guys know anything about this. So let's go over to the strop. So here we are at the strop. I do have a video making this strop if you're interested. I showed you how to make one, a wooden one. Shows you how to attach one to glass. Talks about how to use it, that kind of stuff. So this one hooks onto my granite plate here that I use to flatten a lot of my stones. I actually just recently loaded up with compound, so I'm not going to do that. So first thing I want to do is take the burr off the backs, set it down, slide it back, set it down, slide it back, keep it flat. A little bit more. I'm going to do a long one over here. When you are stropping, if you create a burr, it's fine. Just go back through. So right now I don't think this one's going to pop off. I think it's going to flip over. So there it is. It flipped over. So I'm going to go here. It rolled back over. Going to go here. Slightly rolled back over. So I'm going back to here. Slight roll back over. You keep doing that until it's gone. I'll check for sharp. Nope, let me keep stropping. There we go, that one was being tricky. All right, so here we are at the bench. I have a piece of maple viced up here. I use this for a lot of different things. That's why it's got random cuts and it's not flat. I am going to give these a try, and I'm curious to see how well they hold an edge because they're at a pretty shallow angle at 20. All right, so I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. Um, you saw me make a couple mistakes, so I should have let the finish on the handle sit a little bit longer. I didn't think about the temperature in the shop being so low right now because we're in the middle of like a crazy winter storm in western Pennsylvania. So should have waited a little bit longer, but I kind of like that they're not as shiny as they were. So I'm okay with it. Getting the backs flattened was fine. A couple of them were a little bit out of whack, but you saw that process. The bevels, I'm still really confused by this one. So if you've run into an issue with that where the one side's thicker, the other side is thinner, and I mean it's like noticeable. And I have a feeling that that's leading to me not being able to sharpen the square, whether I'm doing it. I mean, I tried both of the jigs and I still couldn't get it. So if you know what's going on, let me know. I'm going to put this up in the chisel group, see if they know. As far as them holding an edge, after a couple swipes, they did stop shaving hairs, but that's pretty normal for most of the chisels you're going to run into unless you're paying a crazy amount. But they were still able to get a good clean, this side, a good clean swipe on here. I don't know why they're at 20 degrees because they're not paring chisel size. I mean, these are standard bench chisel size. So I would take these and put them to 25 or 30 and have them at that angle, but they still held an edge at 20. So it's only going to get better if you bump up that angle. But I hope you guys enjoyed going through this process with me. I hope you learned a lot or just had fun watching it because you're bored at work. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to leave me a comment below. I did mention a couple different videos in this, so check out my channel. There's one in there about sharpening media. There's another one about building a strop, so go look at those. I'm not diving into all that right now. But all right, have a good one. Thank you.